rumors are now starting for the Xbox Developer Direct, which probably will be in January, which is what they have done over the last 2 years, where you get a deeper dive into the big first-party games coming out for the year. I've really enjoyed them in the past couple of years. We got a big information drop for the PlayStation 5 Pro. There's no more debating on whether the teraflops are 32, 16, all of that stuff. PSSR basically being put out there to test it on the market and get information so that they can continue to improve on machine learning, basically making it a beta test, in my opinion. All that stuff. Mark Cerny put out a very long, in-depth video on the tech behind the PlayStation 5 Pro. We have sales numbers, console sales numbers, game sales numbers, and many more things. But before we continue, if you do enjoy daily gaming news and content, make sure to hit the subscribe, share the video, like the video, all that stuff to help the channel grow. But let's jump into it here with the 2025 Xbox Developer Direct. We have some rumors here going around that it is going to be coming soon, in the next few weeks or so, going into January, maybe a month or so. And it is a very good showcase. I found the last 2 years have been very, very good. Obviously, there was the infamous shadow drop of Hi-Fi Rush, which now Xbox doesn't own Hi-Fi Rush anymore, but that was a huge moment. And then we had last year's, which they gave us more in-depth looks at games that came out this year. It was all great stuff, and I'm looking forward to 2025's. But we have this year from Tom Warren and The Verge writing, feels like Microsoft has finally hit a good cadence with Xbox Game Pass releases, especially with the recent drops like Indiana Jones and what's ahead in 2025. Avowed, South of Midnight, Doom, Towerborn, Fable, Outer Worlds 2, and more are coming next year. I'm also expecting an Xbox event in January. So, I mean, that is a given. There will be, I'm pretty sure, an Xbox event in January, as this is what they've done the last couple of years. But this one, there's so much to go over. I wonder if they are going to go over all these games. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games here that we know of that they could talk about and go into the studios, talk to the developers, give us a behind the scenes look as to how these games are coming along. It could be a pretty huge developer direct kick off 2025. And I mean, there's also other stuff there, like maybe some sneak peeks into next year's Call of Duty or something at a showcase down the line. Lots that they can do here, and they're definitely hitting their cadence going forward here. I mean, there's so many games to be released. We've talked about this previously, and it's just, how do they release these? You can't stack them all up. They are going to be day one at Xbox Game Pass. It is going to be a major attraction to the platform, whether that's Game Pass or whether that's buying it on the Xbox console or PC. There's going to be a lot of stuff to choose from, and no one's going to be able to play it all. So I wonder when and how they're going to release these games. Are they going to be spread out, or just because of the way that it ends up with the development cycle, I would say, want to put them in the cooker if you have too many releasing at the same time. But maybe the cost for that is too much if they're still spending time on the game as they're waiting for it to release, and they need to make their money back for financial reports. There's so much that goes into these release dates, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how they spread them out in 2025. Now, when it comes to sales, we got some major sales numbers here for consoles and for games from Circana and Matt Piscatella. So let's go over that. Let's start off here with the game side of things. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was November's best-selling video game, which is not a surprise whatsoever. However, it's still not number one in 2024. Now, the game did release in October, so it only has 3 or so months to be able to get to the top of the list. And they generally do. I mean, Call of Duty generally gets to the top of the list every year. It got beat by Hogwarts, I think, a couple of years ago. As right now, it's number 2 behind College Football 25, which is pretty crazy because this is a game that hadn't been out for about 10 years. So I guess all the hype surrounding it and everything is getting people to jump in and buy it if they hadn't played it for a long time. I have it. It is a great football game. But it is beating right now Call of Duty. We'll see if it surpasses it and becomes number 1 for the year by the end of December. But here is the list for November. You can see it's just Madden, FIFA or FC, college football. That goes 2, 3, 4, and the number 1 is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. So the sports games dominate these sales with the multi-platform stuff, and just, you would say, people that maybe only play that game throughout the entire year, that and Call of Duty, those always dominate the top of the charts. And those are the things that people buy consoles for, because Madden and FC and college football in particular is not even on PC. People are going out there and buying consoles for this game alone. We saw some reports when the game first launched that I think it was the Series S that was like going out of stock or something, or really flying off the shelves because of EA Sports College Football 25. So a huge success there for EA. Obviously, they're going to keep making that game, and we'll see if it stays at the top of the charts by the end of December, or if Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is going to be able to pass it. Now, when it comes to consoles, this is some more information that really will spark conversation about the future of the Xbox console. I've already seen it online like crazy, people looking at it, especially after the Satya Nadella quote that came out, which again, he didn't give us any new information. He said that they're still innovating and making more consoles, and I do believe Xbox will have more generations of console, at least one more generation at the very, very least. But the sales for the Xbox Series X and S are actually declining from last year. Here are the numbers from Circana. It says, for November 2024, video game hardware spending increased by 0.3 million from 924 million to 927 million year over year. So a slight increase in the overall spending on hardware. And I think the big reason for that will be because of the PlayStation 5 Pro $700 price tag, and they sold well at launch, which is not surprising. I said that they would sell well at launch. It'll be interesting to see the longevity of the sales of the PS5 Pro. It says here that's a major change from October's numbers, which saw a 23% year-over-year fall. Unlike October 2024, where a decrease in sales was across the board, November was a bit different thanks to the launch of the PlayStation 5 Pro and its $700 price tag. Not surprising whatsoever. Although this did not sell out, and you could go and pick one up easily even at launch, $700, there was still probably a decent amount of pre-orders of people that went out there and picked it up day one to see what the results were of this new upgraded console. It says the PS5 saw a 15% increase in overall spending, and on the other side of things, Nintendo Switch saw a 3% year-over-year drop in sales, while the Xbox fell 29% from last year. I mean, that's a pretty big drop here in the overall console sales. It would have people asking, what is Xbox doing here with trying to push more of the console? Well, the first thing is, console obviously is not their measurement of success at this point. I mean, they're looking at their player numbers, they're looking at Game Pass, but you would think they would still want to try to increase sales somewhat and not be falling year over year. So going back to the PS5 Pro made up 19% of the numbers of PS5 consoles sold in November, while also accounting for 28% of the money. That's a 12% decrease in launch month sales of the PS4 Pro, but a 50% increase in dollars. So overall, people are buying the PS5 Pro less than the PS4 Pro. Not surprising. It's more expensive. I think it's like $300 more expensive. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the PS4 Pro launched at $399. And then, and it says it right there in the article, launched at $400 in 2016. But they're getting more money off of it, which is what I think they were looking at. They're probably looking at their numbers and saying, we're not going to sell as much. The console market is stagnating. We're not going to sell as many consoles to the people out there, but if we make more money off of it, we can sell less and still be profitable off of it. And that's exactly what they did here. They accomplished that. They made more money, but they had to sell less units. But the $700 price tag has absolutely paid off, and it signals to PlayStation that people are willing to pay that price, at least at the launch of it. Like I said, I wonder what it's going to be like going forward over the next year or so. Are people still going to be willing to drop the $700? And will there ever be a price cut for the PlayStation 5 Pro? Now, overall, they do say that hardware sales in the US have fallen 24% to $3.74 billion from the $4.9 billion in 2023. And in terms of the general units, 2.4 million consoles were sold in November 2024 compared to the 2.3 million in November 2023. That brings the total number of consoles sold for 2024 up to 9.4 million, down compared to the 11.7 million sold by this time in 2023. So those are the console sales numbers. Xbox is down decently 29%. Nintendo down 3%. Not surprising, it is at the end of their life cycle. PlayStation is up, and that is pushed here by the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, even though the Switch was down 3%, the people at Nintendo are probably pretty happy about the current results of the Nintendo Switch and the milestone that they have hit here. And that is that the Nintendo Switch has become the best-selling console in the United States. It says the Nintendo's console has surpassed the lifetime sales of Sony's PS2, while EA's college football title has become the best-selling sports game ever based on dollar sales. So two major things there, two records that just got shattered here. The college football best-selling sports game, and then the Switch beating the PS2 overall in total sales in the United States. The question that a lot of people will have is, will the Nintendo Switch at this point be able to catch up to the PlayStation 2 in overall sales? One of the things that PlayStation somehow keeps doing, maybe they'll do it now in the United States as well and become number one again, is they are finding sales in 2024 for the PlayStation 2 to increase that number and making it harder overall for Nintendo to catch them as the best-selling console of all time. Sony recently confirmed the 160 million PS2 consoles have been sold worldwide since its launch in 2000, and it remains the best-selling console of all time ahead of the DS and Switch, which has sold 154 million units, which is the DS, and then 146 million units respectively as of September 2024. So to get to 160 from 146 between now and I guess when the Switch 2 launches, I mean, they'll still be selling the Nintendo Switch for the next number of years, so they do have time. But when the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, it's going to definitely cut into a lot of the sales, where getting to 160, I think, will be pretty difficult here for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, I'm rooting for it because I love the Nintendo Switch. I think it's a great platform and a great console, lots of great games on it, but I don't know if it'll pass the PS2. I thought the PS2 was great too when it launched. So two juggernauts there at the top of the list. Now, if you're a fan of Indiana Jones, I am a fan. I'm almost done. I think I'm getting close to around 20 hours into it at this point. But one of the things that people were scratching their heads and questioning is, would it work this game in first person? A lot of people wanted this in third person, and I think Machine Games nailed it. I think the game is great in first person. I have no issues at all with the perspective that they went with. Machine Games is a great developer, and they gave justice here to Indiana Jones in that first person view. But there is a glitch here that is occurring where people are going to get a glimpse as to what it could be like in third person. I'll be honest, because obviously they didn't make it for third person. It doesn't look that great, especially when you get to the fighting moments in the game. It's actually really funny how it looks. But it says a player accidentally ran Indiana Jones in the Great Circle in third person mode. The change happened because of a bug. Here it is. You can see the video. He's running around in third person, and it looks fine from just movement and everything. But look what happens here when he gets to the combat. It looks hilarious. Like, this would be hilarious playing a game like this. Just so unnatural. And that's obviously because it's built for first person. And when you're playing in a first person, it feels natural. It looks natural. But here, with his arms all close, this is hilarious combat in this perspective. I wonder if Machine Games will ever provide a third person mode. I feel like it would be super smart, like maybe a year or so after the game, player numbers are basically non-existent on, nobody's really checking it out anymore, or maybe even further than that. But when the talk about this game has died off, they come out with a third person mode to get people to jump back in, play it again, or continue from where they left off. I feel like that would be a very smart thing to get people to buy it, play it once the overall hype for it has died off. But we will see. I don't really care. Even if they release a third person mode, once I'm done with this game, I don't know if I would go even try it in third person. But it is, they did a great job in first person. I think they nailed it, and they did it justice here, even though a lot of people still to today probably want the third person Indiana Jones game. All right. Let's move over and let's talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro. I've said on this channel multiple times that I think PSSR is cool. I think it's going to be great in the future once there's more information that they can take to use it. It's machine learning. It needs to take in the information from games, the upscaling for it to work perfectly. We've already seen developers give you that option to turn it off because it's just hurting their game more than helping it. And if you're paying $700 for a brand new console and the main selling point is PSSR, there's really no point in picking up the console at that point. So the PSSR is still in beta, basically, and they're trying to get it to work better. And Mark Cerny put out a 37-minute deep dive into the technology about the PlayStation 5 Pro, debunking a bunch of things that common sense would tell you when consoles do release, they're never as crazy powerful as some of the fanboys and stuff try to make it out to be. So we have this here. We have a summary of his video from Okami Games here on X. And here's some of the stuff that he did talk about. First of all, one of the cool things is Sony and AMD. At the end of this video, he announces that they are a new collaboration codenamed Amethyst to support future machine learning applications across a variety of devices. So he focuses on this as something that they will utilize for gaming, but it's not just going to be for gaming, and they're going to make this more open so it can be used on more technologies out there, which is kind of cool here that they are working together with this. Obviously, PSSR, AMD is still in the PS5 Pro. It's the main thing for this console to push it ahead and push the technology ahead for future generations so that machine learning can come and give great results for these games. They're going to continue to work on that stuff, even though right now they've already launched the PSSR. And then there's Mark Cerny's video, but there's also an interview with Digital Foundry that dropped as well, where he's talking about this stuff. And it says here, when asked by Digital Foundry if technologies like frame generation and ray reconstruction are being explored, Mark Cerny says definitely. Mark Cerny thinks that rasterization has a limit, but big gains to be made in ray tracing and AI/ML applications for graphics. And then here is where lots of narratives get debunked instantly. You saw a lot of people out here. It's the same thing they did before the launch of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, saying like RDNA 3 and 4 and stuff were in those consoles, and some crazy stuff with teraflops, making them sound way more powerful than what they truly are. And common sense has to kick in when it comes to the console market. If you've been somebody who's been following the console market forever and always been playing a console, they can't have technologies in consoles that are surpassing PC or at the high end of the PC market. They just can't do it because of the price point that they do release these things at, which it just makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know why people still go on those things and try to convince people that stuff is the way it is, when historically we know that isn't how it goes. And they did this again with the PS5 Pro, saying it was like RDNA 3 or RDNA 4, which it is absolutely not. Mark Cerny, in his own words, says that it is RDNA 2X, which basically means it's RDNA 2 with full feature suite and some features from RDNA 3 and 4, which is not surprising. I think people who said this before were the ones that were looking at this from a more logical perspective. And then the other thing, which is the more funny thing out of it all, is the PS5 Pro is 16.7 teraflops. It's not more than that. It's not less than that. It is 16.7 teraflops. It's not the 32 teraflops. In fact, Mark Cerny, in his own words, came out and said people who are saying that it was like 32 teraflops or 33 teraflops were taking this off of leaked specs that were incorrect. So he debunked that straight out. There's no more room for debate on that. It is 16.7 teraflops and RDNA 2 technologies with some RDNA 3 and 4 stuff thrown in there. So that is the PlayStation 5 Pro. Again, as I've mentioned many times on this channel, it's not about the teraflops. It's not about RDNA. It is about the PSSR. How is that utilized in game? How will it improve the performance of games? And as of right now, what we are seeing is that they've put it out here today to test it, basically to gather information and to improve it for the future, the PS6. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because that means the PS6 will probably launch with some great machine learning technology. But you have to ask, is that worth paying the $700 for? That to me is the question that at the end of the day that people have to figure out here if they're going to pick up a PlayStation 5 Pro. All right, a couple more things here. Marvel Rivals, it's just doing absolutely insane here in terms of the numbers. They're celebrating their 20 million players, so it's a huge number for the game. Not surprising with the Marvel IP, but there is a free reward now because of this. It says the official Marvel Rivals X account revealed 20 million players have joined the game. As a token of their gratitude, the developers are offering a free reward for the community. If players log in between December 20th and January 10th, they can grab a free spray that features the 20 million milestone. So just if you're into that game and maybe you're going on Christmas vacation or something, you just want to log in between then and January 10th to get this free item. 20 million players is huge. This game is taking the FPS hero shooter genre by storm. It will continue to do good. One of the cool things I like about it is just how many characters you have in this game to select from. So that's a nice draw here from Marvel Rivals. It seems like they've done it right. Even with the Marvel name and IP, which I think brings in a lot of players that maybe not play these games generally, I think they've done it right overall with the launch of the game. And other companies need to look at this and use that as an example as how they should be launching these free-to-play games when they're getting 20 million players jumping right in. All right, this is one's pretty interesting. if you're a Diablo fan, you want to pay attention to this. So Diablo 1 and 2, the devs behind them have secured $4.5 million for a new ARPG. ARPGs are all the talk right now with Path of Exile 2 and obviously Diablo 4 earlier. But we have this here. It says, in the aftermath of Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred expansion and the early access launch of Path of Exile 2, it's an exciting time for ARPGs and any accompanying loot explosions. Moon Beast Production, this is a development studio that was formed in 2021 by the ARPG veterans who worked on Diablo 1 and 2, is hoping to add a game to the ARPG genre. They've secured $4.5 million in seed funding to do it. They put out a press release saying they're exploring an alternate trajectory for action RPGs, and it's based on its founders' histories. They expect that having a pretty strong sense of where the genre has room to grow. Eric Schaefer, Moonbeast's chief creative officer, started his work on ARPGs as the lead designer in Diablo 1, going on to share credits with CEO Phil Shank and President Peter Hu on Diablo 2 and other storied ARPG names like Hellgates, London, and Torchlight. So if you're an ARPG fan, definitely keep your eyes open for this studio here, Moon Beast Productions, that they've secured funding and they're going to start jumping in and making a brand new game into this genre, which is seemingly now getting more and more competitive here with, like I said, Path of Exile 2 that is out now. People are loving that one. And then Diablo 4, which will continue to get their expansions. CD Projekt Red with Witcher 4, we saw it at the Game Awards. I can't wait for this one. The question is, where is this game going to basically release? I mean, the one thing with CDPR is they have to not make the same mistake they made with Cyberpunk 2077. We're kind of getting into this same area here with The Witcher 4 for the time that it's announced, when they're going to release it, all that stuff. It's going to be near the end of this console generation. If you remember what happened with CDPR and Cyberpunk 2077, the launch was terrible. There's a lot of people who forget that. It was very, very bad. There was a lot of controversies around it because of the dishonesty with how the game released on the PS4 and the Xbox One and everything, and how that held it back, how glitchy it was and everything. And they're kind of running into the same territory here with the launch timeframe for the Witcher 4. So the question is, will this game actually run on current consoles, and will it include the Xbox Series S? And smartly here, CDPR, they're saying here, is staying coy on whether it will run on the current gen consoles, including the Xbox Series S. I think if it can't, if they're struggling, you just don't do it, because you don't want the same issue that they had with Cyberpunk 2077. But here is what they say about this and where this game is going to be running. They say, first of all, this is good to say. This is not kind of a beginning of marketing campaign. And he's referring to the trailer that we saw at the Game Awards. He says, we firstly want to showcase and share with the entire world that Ciri is the main protagonist. It's The Witcher 4, and she's mutated, and she's on the path, definitely, right? And then when it comes to where it's releasing, it says the second thing is that, yes, we are working on a new engine right now together with Epic's engineers, and there is a great synergy and a great collaboration between us. And currently we're working on Unreal Engine 5 and our custom build. And obviously we want to support all the platforms, meaning PC, Xbox, and Sony, right? But I cannot right now tell you more specifics regarding that. So there it is. And he stresses here again that the trailer was a technical showpiece for the game. So it's smart, because they're not going to make the same mistake that they did last time. I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like the current gen consoles, even like the Series X and PS5, have had issues with Unreal Engine 5, just not getting like a steady 60 frames per second and everything. So if they're building everything here in UE5 and it's going to look as good as I think it's going to look, it may have issues. And this will mean that this may be like a game that's one of the biggest games to launch on the next gen of consoles, which, I mean, that's fine. I mean, that could be a showpiece and a huge launch title for both the whatever next Xbox and PS6 is. And I would be jumping into this day one, no matter what. All right, two more things here. The Game Awards, we do have here a quick announcement that it was the most watched Game Awards ever. It was a good show, in my opinion, so that's cool. But they say, today we are humbled and thrilled to share that the Game Awards 10th anniversary show delivered a historic 154 million global live streams, our most watched show ever. And they say, thanks to our incredible team, the industry, and the fans for giving us your time and believing in TGA. Like I said in my review of the show, I think they did a lot of things better this year than they did the previous year. So it was a major improvement, just with giving the developers more time to talk, not pushing them off stage. I actually enjoyed the humor. I know a lot of people were like shitting on it, but I like that Jeff Keighley and everyone was making fun of themselves as to what happened the previous year. I thought that was pretty good. So overall, I think they did a lot better with the show this year, but they obviously need to keep improving it, because there's always the question about voting on the awards and why games win certain awards. It just needs to be overall made more transparent, but also just more streamlined and a better understanding by the public as to how the voting happens, who's actually voting at these big journalistic websites and stuff, because this shows the journalistic websites that are voting, but we don't know who at those places who are voting, like who the people behind the scenes are that are voting and choosing the winners of these awards. Finally, this one's interesting. Skull and Bones. We know Ubisoft is in trouble here. Skull and Bones, one of the most notorious games for the length of development. People thought it was just going to get canceled. It did release, and it did pretty good at launch. I think it was at over 850,000 players who jumped into it on Steam, which is a relatively big number. In fact, they do say here that Insider Gaming reported that 1 week after the game's release, it estimated 850,000 players, which also includes those who played the 8-hour free trial. But now if you go onto the Steam database, it's like concurrent peak players in 24 hours has been 200. And you think this is one of those games, they put all the time into development, but they're cutting costs and they're having to make major changes to be successful in the future. They would potentially just end it going forward. It isn't the case here. So there may be way more players on console and stuff that we don't have the numbers for that are still playing it, but they are releasing a year 2 content for Skull and Bones, or at least it is planned. It says that according to sources who have knowledge of the plans for the pirate action game adventure, year 2 season 1 is set to kick off sometime early next year with brand new PvP game modes, POIs or places of interest, new world tiers, and more. So if you're still playing Skull and Bones, you're going to get a year 2. I jumped into it when it first launched. I thought it was decent, but I needed more from it. And I think that they could have just taken this and given more like third-person combat, maybe more ship combat where you jump onto actual other people's boats and fight your enemies rather than just being cutscenes, things like that. But it's definitely a game out there that it has decent content for people who love the pirate ships and stuff. So we'll see if year 2 is the last, or if it brings in more players and they continue to support this game. But I will end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.